Hello and welcome to the Petersfield Bookshop Recommends. This is our series of short videos in which we take a look at a particular genre or type of writing, or perhaps a subject or even a single author, and provide some recommendations. We think you are all pretty smart cookies out there and able to find the big names and the bestsellers for yourselves, and so we will try and send you down some less well-trodden byways in the company of writers not so well known. This video is about British children's fantasy. It's a peculiar quirk of children's fantasy books from Britain that they are often equally enjoyable by adults, and this is certainly the case for the suggestions that we have for you in this video. So our first book is by David Almond. Almond is still writing and is one of the all-time geniuses of children's literature in Britain. His first book, Skellig, is already and will remain forever a classic. If you haven't read that, please do, but as you know, we like to take you down somewhat more untravelled roads, so we are recommending Kit's Wilderness. Kit is Christopher Watson. He is 13, and at the beginning of the book he moves to a rundown mining town in northern England called Stonygate, so that his family can be near his ailing grandfather. There are an astonishing number of things going on in this novel for such a slim book. At his new school, Kit falls in with a few rather rough, difficult kids who invite him to take part in a very dark game that they play in an abandoned mine. The game is called Just Death and involves one person each time being the one chosen to die just for a moment. Alongside this, we learn that there was a major pit accident years ago, and Kit and his new friend both share names with those who died. There is another strand too, in which an Ice Age boy called Lack is searching for his lost family and protects a little sister. Kit writes stories, that's his thing, and his stories weave in and out of the real goings-on and real history to the point where there is no longer fiction and non-fiction, made up and real. There is just story, all of it potent. It's a book full of magic and packs a punch much harder than its slim dimensions would have you expect. The Midnight Folk by John Masefield is the oldest book on our list this time. John Masefield was one of those writers who kept a kind of Edwardian sensibility about him even into the 30s and 40s. This book was originally published in 1927. He's best known for The Box of Delights, particularly in the UK, where people of my age at least will remember the Sunday evening TV adaptation with its incredible music by Healy Hutchinson. But The Midnight Folk was written before The Box of Delights, and it has the same main character. Indeed, it has a number of returning characters. Kay Harker is a fairly typical English schoolboy character that hasn't really changed from Tom Brown's school days all the way through to Harry Potter. That said, there is a gentleness and a simplicity about Masefield's storytelling that makes The Midnight Folk stand out in a quite crowded field. In this story, Kay goes on a quest to recover the treasure that was stolen from his seafaring great-grandfather. He is helped along the way by numerous talking animals, and he has to fight against a wizard who is leading a coven of evil witches. There are mermaids and broomsticks and a magical horse, and it's a roller coaster ride of encounters. It can be thoroughly recommended as a step back into a very traditional form of Britain's children's fantasy. A Game of Dark by William Mayne. This, as is handily suggested by the title, is probably the darkest of all our recommendations on this video. It's also, I think, a little-known masterpiece. Donald is 14 and he is struggling with all kinds of really difficult things. He is struggling with the fact that he doesn't love his father. He's struggling with the fact that his father is chronically ill and may be dying. He's struggling with the fact that his parents probably wish that he had died in the accident instead of his sister. And all this becomes so difficult that he begins to slip backwards and forwards between his 20th century life and suddenly finding himself in a life that seems to be a medieval village. How exactly this happens is entirely unclear, but Donald will simply find himself there, living as the squire to the local lord. The medieval village is no Disney fantasy. This is a rainy, muddy, horrible place, which is under constant attack by a hideous and giant worm. Part of Donald's duties as squire to the lord involve going out to fight the worm to try and save the village. The tone is unrelentingly dark and grim, and any psychoanalyst reading it, I am sure, would have a field day applying their theories to its tortured relationships and images. That said, it has the feel of deep truth, and is so very well written that it makes it very much worth the journey. The Snow Spider by Jenny Nimmo is a charming tale of a young boy's awakening to knowledge of his magical heritage. When Gwyn turns 10, 9 Griffiths gives him a series of gifts that will determine whether or not he's inherited the magical powers said to be held by his ancestors. The story draws heavily on tales from Welsh legend in the Mabinogion, and these play out more substantially in the later books. But for this first one, we see Gwyn begin to come into his own as one of the gifts he is given by Nine Griffiths is carried away on the wind and returns as the beautiful snow spider of the title, called Alianwyn. As these gifts begin to come to life and awaken Gwyn's magic, they help him solve the mystery of his sister Bethan's disappearance some years before. The realistic family dynamics in this book are just as strong as the magical and fantastical elements, and that makes for a genuinely fresh feel to the genre. We began this video with one genius of children's literature and we end with another. Any of Alan Garner's books for children would find a fitting place on this list, but we have chosen to recommend his most recent and the one for which he received the long overdue honour of a Booker Prize shortlisting. Is it a children's book? Well, which of these really are completely and only for young people? Treacle Walker is a story full of ambiguity. A young boy called Joe, who is having to wear a patch to help correct dodgy eye, spends his time in a house where there don't seem to be any parents, watching out of the window. A rag and bone man called Treacle Walker visits him, and a strange trade is effected, in which Joe is given a cup and a stone, which seem to have some resonance with his past. In a marsh near the house, Joe meets a kind of bog man called Thin Amren, who helps Joe understand that his lazy eye is actually a gift which enables him to see into a different world and a different place. Joe's love of comic books seems to feed the goings-on in this other place, and time collapses into a kind of mythic now. The ancient and the present begin to feel indistinguishable. This is Garner, who published this aged 87 at his absolute best, and if you only read one of the books from this list, I would make it this one. Thank you for watching this video. If you've been convinced that you would like to have a go at any of the books that we've mentioned, please do go to our page on bookshop.org, which is linked below, and there you'll find we've put together a convenient list of these books for you to buy new. Please also check out our website, which is www.petersfieldbookshop.com, and our Twitter at @TheLowlinePBS, and also check out the rest of our YouTube channel, where we have a number of other Petersfield Bookshop Recommends videos for you. Thank you.